Inside you, there are two wolves. One is young, inexperienced, and filled with dread. A wolf that feels every emotion. And the other is the most badass, gun-toting, axe-sharpening, one-liner delivering wolf you could ever imagine. This is Resident Evil Requiem. Requiem is finally upon us, and for me, the game absolutely delivered. As always, there are things you can nitpick, but the overall experience was an insane ride packed with stunning visuals, unforgettable moments, and spectacular gameplay. But I want to start by talking about the protagonists. The game starts us off as Grace Ashcroft, a character we didn't know much about coming into this game, other than that she works for the FBI and is the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft, a journalist who looked to expose Umbrella and was a playable character in the Resident Evil Outbreak games. I'll admit, I did not have high hopes for Grace as a character, especially after what we got with the blank canvas known as Ethan Winters in RE7 and 8. Well, my expectations were shattered with this character. Grace is not confident and is easily rattled. That is abnormal for a Resident Evil protagonist. But let's be real here. If I was in her shoes, my pants would look like the pants of these zombies. Grace's demeanor is relatable, and the terror she's experiencing is palpable thanks to the fantastic performance by Angela Santalbano. Stuttering is something I feel is difficult to replicate without it becoming satire, but she nails it.
CSO. I'm Grace. Ashcroft. FBI.
The terrified character she brings to life made me, as the player, way more scared walking in her shoes. I don't want to sell Grace short, though, as she is resilient and incredibly smart. The perfect example is how she creatively escapes from being tied upside down, and how she hides from Gideon in this cutscene. I don't know about you, but I dream all the time about running away from a murderer, and this is the move I pull every time. What I love most about Grace's portrayal is not just that the performance makes it believable, but the reason for the performance is also believable. The game is set into motion by Grace being sent on one of the most diabolical job assignments of all time, which is sending an inexperienced analyst into the field to investigate a recent death at the same place that her mother was murdered. That's bad enough as it is, but then through a flashback we discover that her mother was horrifically murdered right before her eyes. If you ever think your boss is an asshole, just know it can always be worse. This gives reason for Grace's temperament throughout the game, while also laying the foundation for her to have a great character arc. A character arc that deeply resonates with the one and only Leon S. Kennedy. Leon comes in as everyone's favorite badass, the man who has seen it all and laughs in the face of danger. Everyone knows Leon is the man, but he now feels like a straight-up superhero in this game. He makes a simple task like climbing a ladder and jumping down so dramatic, it's amazing. They even made sure to show him being unfazed by lightning after he looked terrified of lightning in RE6. Him being the experienced, fearless badass so perfectly contrasts Grace's character, but he has also been in Grace's shoes. The young babyface whose rookie assignment thrusted them into hell. I love the moment Grace turns a corner with her motivation, and it resonates with Leon as she states that she wants to make a difference just like Leon feels like he was unable to do during the events of RE2.
Couldn't make a difference. So I am here now.
Grace's confidence grows as Leon's health degrades, allowing them to both be there for each other when the other is weak. These two characters I thought were a great match for each other, and I love the way in which the story unfolds between them. The story is told kind of like in the movie Weapons, where the tension is rising, and then just as things are getting crazy, it switches to the other character. I find this to be a brilliant way to keep the audience on the edge of their seat, with the action rising and falling constantly throughout the experience. Leon is arguably at his best in this game. He has his same sense of humor from RE4 that you can't help but love.
Or we can begin your treatment.
Silent treatment, I hope.
But he also has more depth than ever, showing some remorse for how things unfolded during RE2, and he has more on the line than ever before, with him slowly succumbing to the T-virus infection. Leon and Grace, I think, work very well with each other as characters. But what about their gameplay? The biggest question mark for me coming into this game was how they would pull off the switching between characters. As you can tell, I played with the recommended settings of Grace in first person and Leon in third person, which I did worry would be a bit jarring switching back and forth, but that thought did not cross my mind once after I started playing. I found the gameplay for both characters to be incredible. Grace's gameplay is excellent, feeling like I was playing RE7 again, but with more of that survival horror decision-making of having to decide if you want to try to sneak past an enemy or use some of your precious resources to take them down. The Care Center section as Grace was fantastic. feeling like an old Resident Evil game with resource management and backtracking in a setting that feels fresh but also familiar, with that lavish architecture akin to the Spencer Mansion and with the new version of Crimson Heads in the Blister Heads. It feels faithful to old school Resident Evil while also being inventive. I'm a big fan of the blood collector mechanic, which tempts us to do more backtracking into danger since we can only hold so much blood at a time. The new take on the zombies who retain quirks related to their human identity is so enjoyable. My favorite examples of this were the maids, particularly after this maid came running in frantically to clean up the blood in the middle of me fighting. Also, shout out to this maid looking like the chick from Return of the Living Dead 3 with the glass in her face. And my other favorite was the singing zombies. Hearing the zombies singing even when you were rooms away was awesome, really making you feel like you're trapped in a madhouse. Them shattering glass and messing with your aiming when they belt was very cool, and I love reading the note where they chalk this up as main character syndrome, which made me laugh. Grace's gameplay also has great usage of the new pursuers. For starters, I love how the pursuers actually have logical reasons for why they won't follow you into save rooms, with the so-called shadow ghost not being able to walk into the light, and the big boy not being able to fit through a door jamb. Versus Mr. X in RE2 Remake, who wouldn't come into the save room just because he's a gentleman, and Nemesis in RE3 Remake not pursuing us due to his deep respect for toy stores, apparently. Encounters with the Shadow Ghost or Girl Pursuer make the sound and lighting in this game really stand out. Hearing her chains dragging was eerie while providing spatial awareness in the dark. And hearing her purring, rolling her tongue, or whatever this is, was unsettling. Run-ins with her provided the best use of lighting I can think of in any game off the top of my head. Early on, we get lighting from the lighter, which looks incredible. Whether it's green or red lighting in the dark, the glimpses we get of the pursuer look amazing while also being horrifying. The graphics in this game are so ridiculously good. You can see what looks like a dried up pimple or maybe a scar on Grace's chin, goosebumps on her hands, and progressively more dirt on her hands the further you get into the game. Also, the gore in this game is top notch. Zombies will sometimes have their eyeball hanging out, or their jaw and tongue swinging around, their brain is sometimes exposed, and the blood splatters from gunshots and knives were great. The amount of blood in this game is crazy at times. If it lines up right, blood splatters can even drench a nearby note when you go to read it. The attention to detail in this game is stunning. This is just a gorgeous game, and that goes for Leon's sections as well, despite the understandably bleak grayness of Raccoon City that we will look at in a little bit. Jumping ahead, we eventually make it to this game's version of the Umbrella facility, and we get the triumphant return of Lickers. Having to sneak past Lickers in first person was a match made in heaven. You can take them down with bottles of acid, but I, of course, tried to avoid them as much as possible. This leads to some butt-clenching moments, including this one that may be the best thing I captured throughout the game. The Lickers look incredible, and I loved seeing the detail of them being burnt up after surviving a Molotov cocktail. The Lickers were definitely a highlight for me. Some other highlights from Grace's portion of the game were us trying to get our arm unstuck as a zombie is aiming a shotgun at our face, the zombie crashing through the wall with construction equipment, the fake out of Grace losing her leg to the falling elevator got me so good I literally shouted in my living room thinking that it actually happened. The helicopter sequence was great, starting off with the game making us not sure if we can trust this pilot, the helicopter taking off looking like a scene from World War Z, and then quickly crashing down with the pilot getting impaled by a tree in the process. That was madness, but my favorite sequence with Grace was the meat grinder treadmill. This was genius all around. You just knew something crazy was about to happen when you dropped into this area, and it did not disappoint. Having to walk forward to avoid the meat grinder with bodies constantly at your feet, not knowing if they would get up or not, was such a thrill. And then the zombies getting ground up just made me want to look back and watch, while knowing I should actually be looking forward to avoid the next zombie. This was one of the best sequences in Resident Evil history as far as I'm concerned. The zombie treadmill was insane, but Leon's gameplay was pretty much insane from start to finish. We started off with a short section in the streets that gives us a nice little dose of chaos, and then we jump ahead to the care center. We're quickly introduced to the chainsaw, which doesn't have much of an impact on the game at large, but in this scenario, I was loving it. Having this thing in the room brought so much chaos with it, it was a blast. A zombie can clumsily wield it and stumble into another zombie. When it's on the floor, it's spinning in circles where you can get damaged by it if you try to pick it up while zombies are also closing in. And dying at the hands of the chainsaw provides some gruesome death scenes, including getting gouged by a chainsaw that is stuck in a zombie's chest. I was seriously laughing uncontrollably as this thing was cutting me in half. It was such a great time. I didn't get my hands on the chainsaw again until later on when we have a chainsaw duel with a zombie, which was cool, but doesn't hold a candle to the chainsaw fight with Jack Baker in RE7, if I'm being honest. Regardless, I cherished the joy the first chainsaw scene provided, and it perfectly set the tone for the action-filled experience ahead. Leon comes with a full arsenal of weapons, which of course contrasts Grace's gameplay, who only has a pistol and the Requiem, which I honestly never used with her. I love how I spent a ton of time delicately sneaking past zombies in the care center just to go through there later as Leon and lay waste to every single thing that crossed my path. Leon's gameplay is truly some of the most fun I've ever had with combat in a single-player game. The axe is such a great addition, allowing us to do stealth takedowns and aura farm by sharpening it mid-fight. Once you start stringing all of the mechanics together with parrying, throwing an axe, executing the zombie with your axe, and then getting right back to blasting, it felt amazing. The axe and melee takedowns are awesome, and I appreciate how they're relative to your surroundings, like being able to smash a zombie's head on a ledge and kick through a zombie's face with a kick against the wall. Leon has achieved a level of badass previously thought to be unobtainable. It's sick when he pulls the gun closer to his chest when an enemy is up close, and even the way he reloads his gun is the coolest reload animation I've ever seen. I thought I had Leon's gameplay figured out early on, but then it really opens up when you're about halfway through the game and you get introduced to the weapon upgrade system and the tactical tracker, which rewards you for the more enemies you kill, really hammering home the contrast to Grace's combat where avoiding zombies was your best bet to avoid the chance of running into a blister head. They also constantly introduce new mechanics with Leon to keep you on your toes. There's a forced sniper section, a mini-boss that creates blister heads if you pop his blisters in the proximity of a zombie, the section where you can shoot the glass out from underneath zombies' feet, which was awesome, and there's the late game effect where you're periodically held back by your T-virus symptoms. The bar steadily rises. You thought you knew frag grenades until you find 2 grenades stuck together. New challenges continue to present themselves, like the BSAA zombies who fire guns at you, and I appreciate how they shoot their gun actually like a zombie instead of like normal human AI like we saw with the Javo in RE6. Later on, we do fight gun-wielding human enemies, but I loved how you needed to be tactical, sneaking around and taking them down feeling like John Wick, while sick techno music plays like you're in the nightclub at the beginning of Blade. They took a different approach with the music in this game. I think it fits the tone of the game incredibly well, and when it hits hard. Fighting the elite guards was one of my favorite sections in the game, oddly enough, being that they're not zombies. It just felt rewarding taking these guys down since you needed to be tactical or else they'll smoke you. Picking them off with the scopeless rifle felt amazing and really made me feel like an action movie star. Leon's gameplay just feels incredible and is packed with batshit crazy moments like driving a motorcycle up a building and then motorcycle jousting with Victor Gideon. Speaking of Victor Gideon, let's finally jump into the story of Resident Evil Requiem. We already touched on the story a bit with Grace being brought into this by way of investigating a mysterious death for her job with the FBI. Leon is also sent to investigate the scene through his position with the anti-bioterrorism agency known as the DSO, but with the added motivation that the death seems to be related to the same T-virus infection that he is affected by. If you think about it, Leon seems to willingly be looking for a cure to his physical affliction, while Grace is forcibly looking for a cure for her mental affliction, being the trauma of witnessing her mother's murder, again showing this contrasting mirror between these two characters. Leon and Grace both end up being ensnared in the care center by our new antagonist, Victor Gideon, who is hellbent on getting his hands on the Elpis virus, which he believes Grace is the key to unlocking. I thought Victor was great. First, seeing him dark gunning people in the streets with the virus was fucking awesome, and was cool to see a virus weaponized like that. I love his creepy snake tongue they only give us little glimpses of, and how quickly he goes from calm to rage.
Grace! Grace!
He has a unique design and delivers a great performance that, unfortunately for him, is overshadowed by Grace's performance. In the care center, Grace finds this imprisoned blind girl named Emily, who we eventually free and quickly become a protector of, which of course harkens back to Claire's relationship with Sherry Birkin in RE2. And speaking of which, Sherry Birkin does return in this game, as Leon's eye in the sky, with her also suffering from the T-virus infection. She's pretty much on the sidelines for the whole game, so I don't have a whole lot to say about her appearance, but I was thrilled to see her. Sadly for Grace, Emily ends up dying from a wound she suffered in the helicopter crash as they attempted to escape, and she transforms into this monster, who Leon has no choice but to take down. Grace is at a loss after this, and aimlessly walks into the clutches of Gideon and our other antagonist, Zeno. Grace willingly goes with them, which I questioned at first, but I figure she didn't have the energy to fight in that moment and probably just wanted some answers about her mother's death and this Elpis that she is told she is the key to. Also, when we saw Zeno show up, I was so excited thinking Wesker was back. That isn't exactly the case here, but I believe Zeno is some sort of Wesker clone, which I'll take. Also, if you're going to somehow bring the actual Wesker back, I think it would be foolish to do so in a Leon game and not a Chris game. This leads to Leon chasing after Grace and brings upon the long-awaited return to Raccoon City. Raccoon City as a whole I thought was alright. The city didn't completely feel like Raccoon City to me, with this section reminding me of The Last of Us, but I figure that's inevitable at this point, being in a bleak, dilapidated city infested with zombies. But also the design of the Blisterborn mini-bosses did remind me a lot of the Bloater from The Last of Us. I will say Leon's arrival in Raccoon City was epic, being met by a humongous spider. I love that people complained that spiders were left out of the RE2 and RE3 remakes, so Capcom was like, oh, you want a spider? How about the biggest, nastiest spider we've ever designed? The spider also crawls across windows like the Licker from the original RE2, which felt like foreshadowing of the return of Lickers we see later. They do drop some things in to make the city feel like Raccoon City, like the newspaper you can read, the same umbrella billboard beside Kendo's gun shop that we saw in RE2 Remake, and of course the Mecha, the RPD. This was sweet as expected, walking around the decimated police station. I love how they repurposed the Welcome Leon sign in a sinister way. There's all sorts of callbacks and goodies in here, like the zombie at the vending machine, the skeleton of the zombie we saw in RE2 Remake with its jaw missing, a treasure hunt from Barry Burton leading to a Capcom shrine, the famous saucy picture of Rebecca Chambers, awesome music calling back to the RPD theme from RE2, and a nostalgia trip to the RPD could never be complete without Mr. X. Your run-in with the Mr. X Tyrant is short but sweet, and leads into a showdown outside the RPD. Starting off with him throwing a missile at us was a spectacle. The fight itself I didn't think was anything revolutionary, but I'm happy it happened. Next, we head into the giant hole in the ground where the missile struck many years ago, fight some plants, and then a plant boss that guards the door to the Umbrella facility. The Umbrella facility I thought had a ton of good stuff. I appreciate the mention of Tricell from RE5 on the way in, and on the inside I loved these cool creepy skeleton statues. I like the overall look of the facility and seeing the Umbrella logo come together as I dropped these ball keys in place. I liked how the facility is called Ark and its AI is called Noah, along with the realization that there are 2 of each of the notable experiments in the care center, like Noah's Ark. I loved seeing priced catalogs of the bioweapons Umbrella has been creating, something that we're always told is the intention of Umbrella, but not something that we usually see in-game. And we have an awesome boss fight with who I believe to be the one and only Hunk. This fight I thought was great. An epic clash of these 2 Resident Evil titans. It looks amazing with the encompassing red light and the addition of the fog in the second phase. It felt like a Metal Gear Solid fight with Hunk scurrying around like this. This was definitely my favorite boss fight in the game. After this, we catch up with Grace, see Zeno show off his Wesker powers, and then we escape with the most Leon Kennedy-ass plan I've ever seen, which was jumping on this collapsing piece of metal down into the unknown. We then switch to Grace, and she finally gets some answers from a couple videos she watches of her mom interviewing the one and only Oswell E. Spencer. I love them bringing it back to where it all began by bringing Spencer in. It was also cool to see Spencer be human and show remorse for his actions, as it's revealed that the mysterious Elpis virus is actually an antidote developed by Spencer, sharing its name Elpis with the Greek goddess of hope. As we reach the climax of the game, Grace gets presented with a decision to destroy or release Elpis. Releasing Elpis allows Grace to cure Leon and trigger the final boss fight, while destroying Elpis leads to the worst ending imaginable. This is nothing new for Resident Evil having the possibility of a terrible ending, and thankfully they let you jump back to change your mind if you pick the shitty ending. In the good ending, Zeno also injects himself with Elpis, unknowingly removing his powers, which leads to him being decapitated by Gideon. I'll be honest, this was a bit of a disappointment for me. I really wanted to fight Zeno, which I think could have been awesome with Leon's parry mechanic. Also, I really wanted to learn more about Zeno, but maybe that will come in a DLC or later entry. The stage is now set for Leon's showdown with Gideon. I liked this fight, being able to parry his attacks, watching him swing away looking like Venom, and him bringing in these electrical attacks, which felt new for the franchise. The second phase was interesting with the reveal that Gideon is a nemesis as he transforms into this monstrosity. This felt similar to the final nemesis fight in RE3 Remake, which makes sense but was also a bit of a letdown. It just feels like something we've seen before. It again feels like more of a Dead Space boss, but it didn't offend me so much here as it wasn't rewriting an existing boss like we saw in RE3 Remake. But I do wish this phase had a little more to it or was more difficult. I don't know if the SMG is a cheat code here, but I popped his pimples so easily and took him down first try. Not that I expect to be stuck on a Resident Evil boss trying over and over again, but it felt a little underwhelming. After the fight, we get rescued by the BSAA, and they of course can't end a modern RE game without mentioning Chris Redfield. In these final cutscenes, Leon tells Grace that Emily could still be alive, which turns out to be true, and Grace seems to have adopted Emily. I loved this, hammering home this circle of life theme to the game, with the protagonist cycle seeming to restart with Grace starting her hero's journey as Leon's journey seems to be winding down, and with Grace adopting Emily just like Alyssa did for Grace. Grace is like a new person at the end of the game, with a new sense of confidence that we see with how she gets up from her desk in the end versus how she did in the game's intro, and with her no longer stuttering. I really enjoyed how things wrapped up for her, and I'm excited to see what's next for Grace Ashcroft. Lastly, I wanted to quickly run through the negatives with the game. I already mentioned a few, but have some more that certainly did not ruin the game for me, but I feel are worth mentioning. The Chloe section was definitely a drag, and I've seen plenty of people be vocal about that online. I did like seeing the orphanage in action, but we basically already did this as Sherry in RE2, just with different context this time. For Leon's gameplay, it did feel like you got all of the weapons rather quickly once you hit Raccoon City, but this is also around the halfway point of the game and his gameplay is supposed to be pedal to the metal, so while this did cross my mind, it did not bother me much at all. I was happy to see RE4-esque inventory management, but your cache is so big there really wasn't much inventory management to be had. Again, we're supposed to be balls to the wall with Leon, so I didn't mind being armed to the teeth at all times without worrying about inventory. Performance on PS5 was stellar for me, aside from one bug where my gun strap would stick out like this, which I honestly thought was pretty funny. And luckily I just needed to restart the game to make this go away for good. Something that I do think was lacking in this game was the puzzles. We mostly just get the same puzzle repeated. I thought it was clever to have us use a pencil to shade in the solution to the one puzzle, but overall the puzzles did not move the needle for me. Something I've seen online as a complaint that I don't necessarily agree with is other characters like Claire, Jill, and Ada not showing up in the game. That's certainly something I would have been happy to see, but at the same time, Claire and Jill deserve to be protagonists in their own games and not be relegated to a cameo. I think people set themselves up for disappointment with that. The weeks leading up to the game, Reddit basically looked like a bingo card of people trying to guess who would be in the game. It was ridiculous. I even saw people hoping Sheva would be in this game. Hey, I would like to see Sheva in another game, but why would it be this one? As for Ada, it does seem only right for her to show up, but her and Leon have already shared 3 mainline games together. At a certain point, you gotta do something different, and honestly, her not showing up was a bigger plot twist than her showing up would have been. No! And last on the list, I was going to complain about there being no mercenaries mode with how fun Leon's gameplay is, but it sounds like that will be coming soon, so I take it back. Overall, I think Requiem is an incredible game that gives us both ends of the Resident Evil spectrum in brilliant fashion. I'm not crowning it as the best game in the RE engine personally, but at the current moment I do think it is better than RE7 and 8. I'm sure the contrasting gameplay didn't work for everyone, but I was having a great time from start to finish. We got an original game with fresh ideas, the best gameplay in the franchise, and the arrival of a fantastic new protagonist. There is plenty here for old fans and new fans alike, and that is not an easy task to pull off. If you've made it this far, I deeply appreciate it. I apologize for leaving the green screen out of this one, or maybe you like this type of content more. Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts on Resident Evil Requiem down in the comments, and if you think I deserve it, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future videos. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.